Welcome to another episode of Corporate CPR, where we breathe life back into your organization, projects, and processes, giving you insights to recovery and avoiding corporate mortality events. Today, we'll be talking about how missing the mark on human-centric selling might be killing your company. And joining us to contribute to the conversation is Kayvon Kay. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit about your background?
Yeah. So again, you said human-centric selling is a methodology that I've created as a result of 25 years of being a sales professional in multiple sectors, from real estate to financing mortgages. Even my career ended in the corporate world of pharmaceutical sales. I was the number one pharmaceutical sales rep for the largest company in the world. And from there, I went and created my own organization where we went from basically 0 to 38 million in 18 months.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, that must have been a lot of selling. Let's get into it. Can you talk a little bit?
I mean, talking about a lot of selling. I mean, my team is already we field over 279,000 book calls. We've generated over $375 million for our clients. So we've taken a lot of calls and we've made a lot of sales in our career. Yes.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about maybe what need you saw out there, right? So you're saying you're doing things different, but why was it broken? What are people doing today?
So I always say started off by sales is evil, right? I mean, salespeople like you, sales calls. Who wants to do that? Sleazy and slimy tactics. Like, no thanks. Sales is the number one hated aspect of business, yet it's the only aspect that business can't survive without. So for me, I'm on the mission to change the narrative of what selling really is and where it's even come from. Because selling isn't new. It's been around since humanity itself. We're talking like pre-Ice Age. Right. It was like the earliest center of ideas and ambitions. And along the way, it brought us from where they were back then to where we are today. But somewhere along the way, things got sideways. Yahoo Finance did a research, and out of the top 20 most hated professions in the world, sales, there's only 4 that were more than sales. And you know what those were? Number 1, the paparazzi. Number 2, corporate executives, believe it or not. 3 was parking meter officers. And 4 were online reviewers. These are the people who shit on everything, basically. Sorry if you can't swear, but yeah. The online reviewers are the people who are negative and talk about negative about everything. And then 5 is sales. And it's like, well, what happened? Like, how did this happen? Because I truly believe in business, the fact is nothing happens till a sale's made. So when I looked at it and I started going back to my career, and I realized that there's still this narrative that sales is a numbers game, more people, and we treat them as transactions instead of relationships. We treat sales all about us instead about them. We look at it as how can it serve me versus how can it help them. So for me, human-centric selling kind of comes down to 3 things, but number 1 is the internal self. So I call it getting your house in order, which i.e. means getting your head in order. Because I believe sales is a direct reflection of the results you get of the person that's selling. So if you as the salesperson isn't completely in alignment and connected and understanding what you're trying to achieve, and make it not about you make it about them. As I tell my sales guys every day, if you make it about yourself, you'll end up on the bottom. If you make it about them, you'll end up on top.
And that, goes even, I guess, to the messaging, right? Like so I'm not the best salesperson because I take rejection terribly, but I take it too personally. But one of the things I think that's really important is your mindset going into it, right? And are you going in there for a sale, or are you going in there to solve a problem?
Yeah. It's not even just the mindset, I believe is like the most important, but off the mindset is the energy you bring, because sales is a transference of energy and connection. And if your mindset's off, that means your energy is going to be off, and your energy's off, it doesn't work. And that's why I say, and it's hard concepts for some people to really believe it. I see it when they don't really understand what I'm saying. Is it like, you are the direct reflection of the results you get. If you didn't make a sale, it's because it's your fault. That's it. Final. Not because the prospect wasn't good, not because the lead wasn't good, not because it wasn't the right fit. Because if it wasn't the right fit and you were doing your job, you wouldn't have been speaking to them. You wouldn't be trying selling them. You know, if the prospect didn't want it, you would have already found that out way earlier in the sales process. So for me, it starts with yourself. That's why I say get your house in order. Number two, is for a human-centric selling is intimate relationships. So intimate relationships, I'm not talking romance here. I'm talking about knowing your prospects or whatever, your clients' 2 a.m. problem, the problem that keeps them up at night. For me, when we bring on our partners, one of the things I always say is we look for partners where their kids will invite us to their wedding, because we're that close to them, that we know the family, we know everything about them. And how do you do that, right? Well, how do you build the relationships? You listen. Salespeople do too much talk, so much talk. Shut up and listen. I tell my guys, the less you talk, the more you sell. But the other thing is, it's about hearing. And hearing what they're saying. It's not about listening to respond. It's listening to hear. It's listening to what they're not saying. And the only way you can actually center yourself and do that is, again, we go step back to step one, why it's all internal. Then step two is the intimate relationships. And then step three, believe it or not, love of the game. It's the passion. Like, if you're just doing sales because you're just doing it for the money, that's not love of the game. You're not, you'll be okay. You can be a really good salesperson if you learn all the tricks, but you'll never be great. And you'll burn out.
Yes, what do you find the best salespeople? What does motivate them?
Well, that's a great question. Great question. So there's actually in Sell to Human, Daniel Pink's book. He did a study. I'm sure he did a study, right? And we found out that he did basically 3 groups of people. First was extrinsic motivation, intrinsic motivation, and then there was a group that was a little bit of a mix of the both. And what they found out was the people that were motivated intrinsically, meaning for their passion, right, for their goals, like for big, like what I say is for the mission, not the commission. They found that those people not only outsold the other 2 groups, but worked harder, showed more resilience, and was willing to play the game for play the bigger game. So when you look at that, well, most corporations or whatever it might be, we think salespeople are only led by money, right? They're led by commissions and rewards, and it's proven that it's actually not true. Now, those things matter, and they obviously need to be there. But if you want to really motivate salespeople to the level that pushes beyond just the commission and gets them into what I say, the mission, then it's more about intrinsic. And how do you do that? Is getting in alignment with who they are and their values. Get them to understand the corporate values, what it's about, what you're trying to achieve, the impact you're making in the world, how when they make a sale, it's not just going money in their pockets, it's actually changing a business's life or someone's life. And when you do that, you're changing someone else's life, right? There's like that ripple effect of change.
And so, obviously sales training, right, has been around for ages.
Don't even get me started on sales training.
Always be closing. I don't know if I can, what the mantras I can remember, but how do you break that mindset then? Because I assume some of those are bad habits, right?
Well, I'll tell you this: corporations in US alone, they spend $70 billion in sales training, $7 billion each and every single year. Challenge is 84% of it is forgotten within 3 months of the training. So imagine the pit, the dark hole of just money being tossed into nothing. And then also 60% of the ones that invest in the training don't actually have the structure to support the training long-term. And hence why 3 months later, it gets obviously forgotten. So that's a huge issue if you ask me there, because it's not just about more sales training. It's about the right sales training. And
Mm,
for me, how do I get around that? Well, I mean, I teach people that sales, it's human-centric selling, right? It's sales isn't just about, handling objections and trying to learn all the next tactics or methods or whatever it is, NEPQ, whatever these people have out there saying that they have the best sales training. I think for me, those things are great, but those are like the sprinkles on the cake. For
mm,
me, the very first thing is the actual individual, right? So again, going back to the foundation is the individual. If the individual's off, the sales off. So my sales training is more internal. It's more about looking within. Then it's about explaining about, relationships, creating relationships. See, I used to believe in the one call. We call it the one call close. One call, close them, right? Now is transactional. I actually now believe more relationship. It doesn't matter how many calls. It matters about the relationship I'm creating and how long that relationship can go on for, because that's how you're going to increase the lifetime value too, as of your customer.
so when you're helping organizations or helping a sales person in particular, what are some of the challenges you're seeing then that they're needing to overcome, right? If somebody's not being successful, what are some of the root causes to that?
If it isn't training, meaning like they don't actually have the proper right sales training, then usually it might come down to, again, which is internal, is conviction of the product. We've seen like they just don't actually believe in the product. Now we have an assessment that we use that looks at 62 characteristic traits of a salesperson. It's been done over with 4 million sales reps. So we look at that and we know exactly where they're strong and where they're not. And the first part is their selling DNA, which looks at their commitment. It looks at their desire. It looks at their responsibility. Those three are the most important things when it comes to sales. And commitment is being number one. Is, are they committed to the sale? Meaning they will do whatever it takes to support the person through the sales process. They don't give up. They don't make excuses. They don't say, "Oh well, the market's down. Our competitors are down, so it's okay." We know that before we even hire them. Believe it or not.
Yeah, I've come across, I mean, I don't know if this is the same one, but I know of somebody else who used the tool where you would also identify if they were like a hunter or,
Yes.
like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, you can. Well, here we have ours that's set up. If they're, because of the people that we work with, is, are they a B2C
Mm,
salesperson? Are they a B2B salesperson? Are they like enterprise kind of salesperson? Or are they a setter? So when they come through my assessment, it will tell us based on the way that we've set it up which one of those four they are, so we know where to place them. But then it'll also show us again all the things of what's, like one of the big ones too is the money. There's one just about money and their concept of money and their
mm,
comfortability. So are they comfortable about speaking about money? And what that means is, if they're speaking to someone, they say, "I don't have the budget." People who are not comfortable about speaking about money will go, "Okay," and they just stop. People who are comfortable speaking about money will go down. "Well, let's talk about that," and they'll go down 3, 4, 5 levels about it before they move on, right? And that's very important, because obviously the two, what are the two biggest objections I think people give is money, and I need to think about it.
mm. And so do you have you seen instances where somebody is a good salesperson, but they're just in the wrong position? Because you were talking about B2C, B2B, et
Yeah.
cetera. So, mm,
So I'll flip it the other way and say, like, I know when we are looking to build teams, or we're looking for depending on the product, we're finding the right salesperson, because you can be the best salesperson but on the wrong product or wrong service. So an example of that I'm going to take about my own personal experience. I I got a job. I forget what the company was called, Syntech or something like that, and it was selling like hardware and tools to like construction sites. Now you can see who I am. The audience can't see me, but think about a pretty boy versus a construction worker, right? And I got through all the way to the end until I got to the owner, and he just looked at me. He said, "Come on, man, like you don't want to be doing this." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. Like it would not work. It would not work, because just the
mm,
way I look alone would not work working with those types of people. Another one was I was working on a product for it was like a forex trading, so dealing with a lot of analytical thinkers and finance and all that. And I was actually doing good, but I wasn't doing great. And I reached out to my mentor and I said, I don't know what's going on. Like I said, there's a disconnect here. This is the learnings that got me to where I am today. And the mentor said, well, let me ask you, do you like forex? No. Do you like the people you're speaking to? No, they drive me crazy, the analytic types of people, man. It's like, it's insane. And I as soon as I said that, I was like, oh my God, it's the wrong product. Because you've got to have, for me, there's three most important, I call them the three C's. You got to have certainty, you got to have clarity, and you got to have conviction. And conviction is your currency. And without the conviction, and the conviction is what creates the energy, the positive energy. Conviction to me is the unspoken word that people feel in a sales call that makes them go like, this feels really good. Like this is the right thing for me. And if a salesperson's lacking conviction, it's over. It doesn't matter how great they are. You'll never get a great salesperson without conviction. I would rather take a salesperson who has 100% conviction and no sales talent than the guy who has all the sales talent with no conviction.
And so as like, if you're thinking about then like people who run sales teams, how do you start to know what your team's good at? Or, if you've got the people in the right place, or if they have the three C's, and, how do you assess your team?
Metrics, right? You got to see your metrics. In a lot of, if you don't know your metrics of your sales team, it's kind of hard to understand what they're also doing. Another thing is putting them in different positions, putting them on the outbound, inbound, put them in business development, and seeing where they thrive the best. Now, again, for me, it's hard because I deal with that problem at the beginning. Meaning I don't bring on salespeople and then figure out where they got to go and then find out they're wrong place. I know exactly what I'm looking for, and then I'm going to the marketplace and I'm looking for that. And then even if someone's saying I am that, I'm assessing them on two different assessments to make sure that they are that. So then when I bring them in, I have my 95% chance of success. Because I'll leave something with you, was very important. In Brad Smart's book, he talked about a study that they did, and the cost of replacing a salesperson can cost up to 5 to 6 times their annual salary. Now, I always tell people, if you don't have a salesperson making at least $180,000 to $100,000 a month, you don't really have a good salesperson. So if you look at $100,000 for real money, for easy math, that's $600,000 that you're losing by replacing that salesperson. Now, I want to break that down a little bit quickly, because people go, well, I don't really believe that. Well, let's talk about this. How long does it take to recruit? How long does it take to onboard? How long does it take to actually train that person? And once they're trained, that doesn't mean they're ready to go selling. That means they're ready to start having the conversation. Now they got to learn the nuance of the conversation, of the product, of the industry, the language. They got to now build their pipeline. And all of that takes time. And we breaking that down. That actually takes over 300 hours. And either you as the business owner, or most likely in this case, your sales manager, is wasting all their time training that person instead of working on the other team or working on how to make the company better, making more sales because of one mishire. So a mishire is costly. Look, we don't look at it like that way, but it costs a lot of money.
Oh yeah, I mean that's true regardless of department. But
yeah.
Well, but I guess I've heard, and I guess I don't know if this is true, various numbers, that it takes 6 to 12 months for a salesperson to really be able to start selling when they're in a new role. Is that true, or is that another excuse?
No, that I would say this with a caveat. It is true depending on the market, depending on the service, right? So I say it's true depending on the life cycle, the sales cycle. Meaning, if you're in a 30-day sales cycle, then you would know maybe in 3 months. Like, so a 30-day sales cycle, you'd know in 3 to 4 months if the person's good or not. But if you're in a 6-month or a year sales cycle, it's very hard. It'd be very hard to know if they're good, because that takes a long time to get that sale. So that's why they say the average is 6 to 12 months to know if they're really good.
And what are some of those, I guess, indicators along the way? Like, so maybe it's taking time to get there, but are there things that can be telling you if you weren't so lucky to do the testing up front and the proper analysis up front, whether or
There,
not you have somebody?
yeah, I would say check, like, again, their will to sell. So if you don't have
Mm,
these things, it's not a good thing. But what tracking, right? So how many dials are they making a day? Where are they spending their time? What are they writing their emails, right? Checking, asking them, what do you like? What are the emails you're sending out? So actually looking at what they're doing will tell you, is a very good indicator of where they're at. Because a lot of salespeople will talk, but they don't do. They
mm,
don't actually, they say they're the best, but then when you put them in the seat, they don't even know. They say they can fly the plane, you put them in the seat, they don't even know how to start the plane, right? So how do you identify that? Well, are they making the dials? How many emails are they doing? How many texts are they doing? Are they even drumming up phone call connections? Are they driving up booked appointments? If they're not doing that, you'll know pretty quickly if they're good or not.
So, what about those metrics then? Those hold pretty true then? Like I used to hear, I don't know, something like you have to talk to five people to get, you have to, reach out to five people to get one conversation. You have to have five conversations to get one opportunity to do a proposal, and five proposals to get a deal. I mean, is that
They're
still?
all here's what we know.
Mm,
Whatever study,
mm,
what they say about numbers. But here's what we do know to be true, which is crazy to
mm,
me. And I don't
mm,
even talk about this because it's so embarrassing. And every time I even say it, it frustrates me. Today, because we're so bombarded and there's so many options,
mm,
they've actually moved it and they're saying it's now 12 to 13 touches before a sale is made on average.
mm,
Most people, salespeople, give up after the first touch. Think about
mm,
that. 80%, I think it was like 80% of salespeople give up after the first or second touch, but it takes 12 to 14 touches to make the sale. How many opportunities are being left on the table? Dollars being spent on generating leads that are not getting the attention because a salesperson is always thinking new. And that's the
mm.
narrative you're changing. When you're thinking new, you're thinking transaction. But when you talk about transformation, you talk about relationship. It's not about new. It's about how do I create an intimate relationship with every one of my leads. Now, is there a numbers game to it? Yeah, the numbers game is this, very simple. Have more conversations, ask
Mm.
more questions. If you're not making sales, ask more questions. If you're not getting sales calls or getting sales leads, have more conversations.
What about
Not dials. Did you notice I said not
oh
dials?
yeah. So well, that
It's
was going to
not
be
dials. Dials don't mean
my
anything.
question. Mm.
Yeah. Dials don't mean
Well,
anything.
I don't know about you, but I get bombarded on LinkedIn, and in fact, I won't even respond to people who, I can tell that they're starting to sell to me, and then they
Yeah.
keep sending me emails, right,
Well, because
or
it's all
LinkedIn
automated.
messages.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right. So no effort on their part, and that's part of my thing is like I can tell that you haven't done any research because if you had, you'd know I wouldn't probably need this service or whatever the case may be. Right. There's a lot of different um things there. But I guess so. Maybe it's a two-part question. Is one, right? One of my problems is if back when I tried to sell more, was never in a sales role, but just as a business owner, right? I didn't want to
So
be the annoying person, right? So how do you get
so I
those
gotta
12
correct you.
touch?
I gotta correct
Mm,
you.
well, you're always selling in every role. Yes.
You're if you're listen,
Yeah.
especially if you're a business
Mm,
owner and you don't have a sales team, you are the sales team.
right.
So I
No,
want to make
and
sure like we know
yeah.
that. Like, and everything you want in life is a sale. Everything you
Yep.
get is a commission.
Yeah, no, and actually, my background's project management, and you're always
Yeah.
selling benefits
Which,
or
yeah, same thing,
whatever
right? Yeah.
for the project team and the broader organization. But I meant in a pure like sales role, right? Where that. But anyway, so my question was, so you're talking about 12 touch points and things like that. How are you doing that without being annoying or without getting lost in the noise of everybody else who is annoying? and getting those touch
Well,
points to have those conversations.
there's couple things you're talking here, right? So like what
Mm,
people are doing with you isn't follow up. What people are doing with
mm,
you is business development. They're just trying to get your attention. Like, so that's a little
mm,
different than having like the follow up. Having a follow up is we've already had a conversation, we're already engaged, right?
mm,
So in the follow up, like there's automation set up. I mean, now with AI too, it's pretty crazy. But like, it's text, it's calling, it's emailing, it's going to the socials, it's having the conversation. Now, to me, everyone's always looking for the exact number or what, and I said no. Again, it's about energy.
mm,
It's knowing when and how to connect with them. And like for me, for instance, uh in the first 24 48 hours is super, like it's like if you're not connected, if I mean you have a conversation today, you better believe I'm actually texting you later tonight and just saying, oh hey, I can't stop thinking about X, looking really forward to Y. Next day I might message you, or if you respond to me, see, if you respond to me and we have a little bit more of a conversation, I'm not going to bother you the next day.
mm,
I'll wait maybe a day or two and be like, oh hey, have and bring it up. So it's hard to tell you exactly how many. I'm not going to sit here and be one of those guys. Well, you got to do X this and X that. There's a nuance to it. There's a strategy to it, and then like I said, there's an energy to it. But the biggest problem or challenge that we have is sales reps don't even do that. They do one follow up and they just leave it, or they hope that just the automation that the company set up is going to work. And that to me are just reminders. You're not building. How do you
mm,
build a relationship with someone if it's just automation
right.
and you don't even know who they are? You can't remember them.
Mm. And so what are you think the most important um, skill sets for successful salespeople? I mean, like I know you talked about the C's, but I mean, like now when you're looking at their character or their strengths, like what are those things that really jump out to you at the people who are successful?
We call it the winner's DNA here at my
Mm,
company. So we only hire people that have like the athletic DNA, winner's DNA, meaning like they've actually been like professional or like semi-professional athletes. Why? Because those types of people know how to work hard. They know what
mm,
resilience is. They know what discipline is. They know what motivation is, and they know what dedication is. And when you have that type of like those type of things, you have a great salesperson.
yeah,
Commitment is
and that reminded me, you were talking about no excuses, it's always your fault. And that's something like, I try to work that into my mentality about what I do, that it's that whatever happens, it's my fault, because to some extent you can control it, right? But
yeah.
that's a really hard thing for people to think. Well, often, no, it's not my fault. So how do you, is that something
I,
you can train, or is that just something
Well, that's a
people
mind.
do?
I mean, that's there. It's not something that you can just train overnight, but that's a mindset shift that needs to happen. That's a culture shift
Mm,
that needs to happen, right? And then again, it goes back to hiring those people, right? So like I keep saying this. So like if you're stuck with these people, you're stuck with them. But if you're looking to hire new people, again, there's tools that we use that allow you to know that right
mm,
there, like allow you to know if they have the responsibility. So responsibility is, high responsibility is, it was my fault. I didn't get the sale because I did something wrong. Not I didn't get the sale because the market was down, or my company's doing a new production and they changed this one feature and now my guys don't like it. Like when I
mm,
hear that crap, I'm like, that's conviction. That's pure conviction. That you are projecting your own BS onto the prospect. Never project your own values or opinions onto the prospect. And that goes kind of back to the conviction. But that's all like people who don't take responsibility will make those excuses. People who take responsibility will say, they'll say this: I did everything I could. And I left it all on the table, knowing. So I always say this: win or lose, did you leave it all on the field? Even when you
mm,
lost, again, athlete over here, but did you
mm.
leave it all on the field? Meaning, is there anything else you think you could have done, yes or no? And if the answer is yes, shame on you. Go back, figure out what that is, and never let that happen again. If the answer is no, then that's just what it's been. It's all right. What it's meant to be. Because when you come from that, I'll tell you, you're going to be a great salesperson. And here's the thing that a lot of people like. I mean, I hear it all the time. Always ABB, always be closing, or always be selling, or like you're not going to close everybody.
Right.
I'm not looking to close everybody, and I'm not looking to sell to everybody. I'm looking to close and sell to the right somebody, the person that needs the product, the person that is in pain or needs it because they need to, they need it for success of whatever their business is. I'm looking for those people. You don't sell, I don't want to, I can't use this word anymore, but like, you don't sell ice to an Esco. Like, I don't believe in that. I think that's dumb. Like, why would you do that? Right.
Right. Yeah. And how can you be doing intimate selling if you're selling stuff to people who don't need it?
I love that
Because
you just said that.
eventually, because eventually they'll figure it out, right? They'll be like, wait.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to that the Santa Claus, right? In Miracle on 48th Street, 49th Street, whatever, where he's sending people away from Macy's or wherever he works, right? Because he knows it's about finding what that person is actually after, and because of that, they get a better Macy gets a better reputation, and more people want to shop from them in general. If you actually solve people's problem, their loyalty goes up.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny how just a little humanity and a little empathy can can move mountains. And I think we've lost that. I really think we've lost that. We're selling from our heads instead of our hearts. We're selling from an idea of, well, someone gave me a script and I got to follow this script. And I went and took this lesson and I got this trainer that came in and told me how to handle objections just like this. But nobody's actually talking about the connection. There's a reason why my company's called The Sales Connection.
When you think about large organizations with sales teams, then maybe what are they doing wrong in how they have things set up and structured? Have they created an environment and a culture that's not supporting then, enabling a good sales team?
So especially in big corporations, it's unfortunate because it's true, and I don't know if that's ever going to change. Is salespeople in most corporations, or I'm going to say the sales departments, hate it. Why? Because they make the most money. But what we forget is they're also the first in and the last out. They're also the first to get hired and the last to get fired. They're the business's game changers. They're the market spotters. They're the movers and the shakers that bring in the dollars for the businesses. And when you're in the middle and you're marketing or whatever, they forget that. So then what also happens is it's hard as the CEO when you're signing the checks to the salespeople, right? So there comes this energy, which isn't great. And that's what causes all this friction and, which I think turmoil in sales departments. I think it starts first from the leader respecting the fact and understanding what it is to be a salesperson and the beatings you take. And you get back up and you take them again, and you get back up and you take them again. I think from a top-down leader perspective is important, is the respect the salespeople. And then from there, it's about how you support them, because we're wild creatures. We're wild. Like we are emotional. Like great salespeople are emotionals. They ride the highs, they ride the lows. They're emotional, but they do great things. So how do you create an environment where you allow for these things to happen, but not in ways that are obviously dysfunctional, but in ways where it supports them? How do you support different types of sales behaviors? Like you have people that are really good at the sales process. Maybe they're not good at the sales, like actually closing. You have people who are great at closing, but they're not good at the CRM or good at inputting things, right? So it's about how do you support the function of the sales department first, and then how do you kind of go down each level and then support the different types of people that are in. And that's more of a manager's problem, not so much a CEO's problem, but more of a manager's opportunity. I shouldn't call it a problem, an opportunity for them to support them individually. Because I'll say this, like when you're building a sales team, if you try to build a sales team with a bunch of Tom Brady's, you're not winning the Super Bowl. So you're not trying to build a team. Like if you built a sales team of a bunch of Kayvons, you're going to have more problems than you ever wanted. I can promise you that. So it's about crafting. Again, we look at like, just like a GM of an organization is building the team for success. We're doing the same thing. We're looking at the different personalities. We're looking at how do we make this team well-rounded. so they can learn from
Mm,
each other and they can train from each other and they can support each other and they help each other. The one other big thing is where I see sales departments quit is they make it about an individual race. And even though
mm,
sales can feel individual, it's all about the team and the team collective. And if you can get the salespeople to realize we're all on a team. So Vince Lombardi, one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard, been saying this for 20 years now. Uh, Teamwork is individual commitment to a group effort.
mm. Does that resonate though with salespeople? I mean, I guess I've kind of taken them to have the personality of being kind of a like wanting to own their results and do it on their own to make
Well,
sure they get their glory and whatever.
well, there's a difference here. You're just saying
Mm,
wanting to own their results. That's yeah, like great salespeople should own and want to own their results. But you don't have to do that alone. You're responsible for your results, but you don't have to feel
mm,
like you're in it by yourself. And you sure don't have to feel like you're against each other. Because again, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far,
mm,
go with a team. Now, a big issue, and we're not talking to salespeople here, but another issue I see salespeople making all the time is they think the grass is greener on the other side.
mm.
So they say they see some other corporation or somewhere. Oh, I heard they are making more money there. Oh, the leads are better over there. And the reality is they keep jumping around. Going back to what we talked about earlier, it takes 6 to 12 months to actually get to know what you're doing. They keep jumping around. They never get to that point because they keep looking over someone else's fence, not realizing the grass is greener because the person on that side is watering their grass.
Right. Doing what they need to
It's the
do,
same thing as corporations.
discipline. Mm,
Corporations always say to me, like, teams that we work with, they're like, my sales teams, they're not good. We need to get new salespeople. And it's like, well, how many have came through? Wow, 20, 30. So you're telling me 20, 30 salespeople have come through your organization this year. 5 of them are sticking. And you're saying it's a salesperson's problem?
mm.
Maybe not. Maybe it's a sales training problem. Maybe it's an onboarding problem. Did you ever think, here's the big, don't say this, Kayvon. Maybe it's a marketing problem. I was at a marketing conference. I'm going to say this because it's so important. I was at a marketing conference, not a sales conference, a marketing conference. And the head marketer stands on stage and says, if your salespeople need to do marketing, marketing didn't do their job. And that's
Mm,
this big argument, right? That you always sell, marketing on one side, sales on the other side. In the organizations that I work, that I've created, marketing and sales sit beside each other. Marketing and sales are on the same team because, again, way more powerful than when they're trying to go against each other. Oh, the lead's not good enough. It's marketing's fault. Oh, the sales guys are not closing. We're giving you all the leads. Salespeople aren't closing. Like, that's not effective. That's just, to me, that's why I've actually stepped out of big corporate offices, and why I went on my own was because of all that BS that goes on.
mm.
Everyone's so selfish and worried about their own agenda that nothing gets done. And it's a grind. It's just not. It's, to me, it's like in bureaucracy and this and that, and not for me.
Mm.
Sales and marketing should be best friends. Sales, marketing, and fulfillment should be best friends. They should all sit there because the same thing is that there's a handoff. See, sales in the middle, right? It's like they get the leads from marketing. There's a transition between marketing and just the sales process, and there's a transition after the sale is done to fulfillment or whatever it might be. And those two gray areas are very important. And if there's bad energy or two teams are not talking, there's a disconnect, and it's not effective.
Mm. Absolutely. Well, Kayvon, this has been really interesting, but we are running a little short on time.
Yeah.
I would love to hear what 3 things you want to leave top of mind with folks.
I'm going to leave, instead of 3, I'm just going to leave one. I think is a very important thing is stop selling from your head and start selling from your heart.
Okay, excellent. And how can people get in touch with you or learn more about what you do?
If you want to come, you can come to my website. It's kayvon.com. That's KAYVON.com. And then from there, you can follow me on all the socials.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for taking the time out and being on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Mhm. And to our audience, until next time, keep your organizations healthy.